Recording progress.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So we are almost in the concluding section of the fifth chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. Another three slokas we have to cover before we proceed to the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, as you all know, is called the Dhyana Yoga, the yoga of meditation, and that will be studied in details. The yoga of meditation, the process of meditation, what's the utility of it, what's the purpose of it, what's the goal we are going to attain through the process of meditation. This will be dealt with in details in the sixth chapter. The sixth chapter is almost a synopsis of the entire Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So, but before entering, just to highlight what we are going to study in the sixth chapter, the 27th and the 28th verse. There are in total 29 verses in the fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The 27th and the 28th verse will highlight, as a synopsis, it will highlight what we are going to study in the sixth chapter. So that we are going to take up today. The 27th and the 28th verse, to be concluded by the 29th verse. So what's the 27th and the 28th verse of the fifth chapter stating? So let's first read the sloka and then we will continue to the discussion. Sparshan kritva bahir bahyan chakshuschaivantare bhruvo pranapano samau kritva nasabhyantara charino yatendriya manobuddhir munir moksha parayanah vigatecha bhayakrodha yah sada mukta eva saha. So the process of meditation, it is, as a synopsis, has been highlighted. What is it saying? Let us go phrase by phrase. This parshan kritva bahir bahyam. The shutting out all the external objects. We don't allow the external objects to disturb our mind. So sparshan kritva bahir bahyan. So all the bahya, all the external sense perceptions in the form of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. So these are the 5 avenues through which we are gathering in the external world sensations. So that we have to stop first. That's the first step. Shutting out the external objects. And the next is chakshushchaivantare bhruvoho. So the literal translation is as if fixing your gaze between the eyebrows. So what actually it means? It doesn't speak of really fixing the gaze into the eye in the eyebrows. It actually speaks of what? That closing the eye in such a way, in a relaxed way, not forcefully. If you close your eyes fully, you will find in meditation there is a chance you go to laya, a state of sleepiness, drowsiness. And if you keep your eyes wide open, that will distract you. The external world will be you will be interacting with the external world. Whatever is visible, that will be disturbing your mind. So neither the eyes are fully open, nor the eyes is fully closed. The best way is it is half closed in such a way that when you sit for meditation, if you're sitting in the lotus posture, or you're sitting straight just on the ground or in a chair, as per your convenience, you just see your legs, at the most the finger of your toes, nothing behind that. So it's not that you have to gaze there. And when you keep your eyes half closed, you find that if at all the vision is there, it's not going beyond that, beyond your toes. So what it speaks of, that if you fully close it, the chances are there you will go to a state of laya, as in Sanskrit they call it. Laya means you will fall asleep or you will become drowsy. If you keep it wide open, you will be distracted. So keep it half closed in such a way that your eyeballs are not moving. And you will find that the movement of the eyeballs speaks of the state of our mind. Even in dream, a person is dreaming. How can you find out he is dreaming? That his mind is not calm. Dream means mind is agitated. His mind is going through so many visualizations. And you will find the eyeball is moving. Even in sleep, the eyeball is moving. So the movement of the eyeball speaks of the disturbance going on in your mind. So in meditation, you take the help, physical help, to calm down your mind. When you keep your eyes fixed, the mind gets also calm. So keep the mind, this eyeball shouldn't be moving around. So be aware of that. So it's a very interesting thing. The movement, the body and the mind is very much interrelated. It's just like a cup of water. If you move the cup, the water is bound to move. The water is like the mind, the cup is like the body, and the eyes, each and every part of the body. So in meditation, this is very important, that I make it sure that I try to avoid any sort of movement. I will be sitting still. You will find when you are sitting still in meditation, and for any reason there is a movement in your body, immediately you will find as if there is a fall in your focus. Your mind was quite calm and suddenly it gets turbulent. Not turbulent, disturbed. That tremendous focus which we are enjoying, the let go which we are enjoying, that's gone. So that's how the body and the mind is related. So keep the body still. Your eyes shouldn't be moving. If it is half closed, naturally its attention gets focused, and that's what is being indicated in the first line. And then comes the breath. Prana panam samo kritva. So controlling the outgoing and the ingoing breaths. So many say, some of the commentary will say it is going to a state of kumbhaka, that you stop your breath. But by stopping your breath, you cannot continue. And it's not a very good practice. Some do try to practice kumbhaka and they do find that the mind is calming down. But know it for certain, it is very dangerous. That calming down in the long run is actually harming you. Don't force your mind to calm down by stopping your breath forcefully. That's why our mind calms down when we really try to stop our breath forcefully. Because with the breath, our brain is very much connected. In the other parts of the body, the energy is stored. So even when you are not breathing, the stored energy enables the body to sustain. But the brain constantly needs that supply of oxygen. Constantly. If you stop, the first thing which happens, the brain starts getting affected. So if you stop the breath forcefully, the turbulent mind, which is always disturbing us with all its turbulence, I cannot just keep quiet. By forcefully stopping the breath, what will happen, as the oxygen is not going with your blood to the brain, immediately it starts affecting the function of the brain will be forcefully numbed down. For many, it may be a wonderful sensation at the beginning. It's a very good sensation. But in the process, we are killing the brain cells, the nerve cells. So that's not a very good way. So you will find many get affected that way by forcefully trying to stop the breath. So that's why they say that the scriptures has to be studied with proper guidance. Don't just, nowadays the free translation is available, you read and you just resort to some practice and that can harm you. But if you read the words between the line, it has never spoken of to stop the breath. Prana panam samam kritya nasa abhyantara charina. It's speaking so very slow breath. What's that? That when I am breathing, I feel the air is passing through the nose, nasa abhyantara. When I'm breathing, it is passing through it. When I'm breathing out, it is passing out. But if you're forcefully breathing, you will find after some time, though you are breathing out, you are not feeling the breath anymore in your nose, though you are still breathing out. The pressure is on your diaphragm. You don't feel it. If you are breathing in too deep, after some time you don't feel the breath going on in your nose. Though you are still breathing, your diaphragm is expanding, but you don't feel the air passing through your nose. You can try it. If you just take a very deep breath, after some time, for certain time, you will find the breath is entering through your nose. You feel that. But after that, you don't feel it. Your diaphragm is increasing and you are as if forcefully taking the breath. So here you will find this, if you go to the exact translation, prana apana sama kritva. The breathing in and breathing out should be rhythmic. Breathe in, breathe out, sama. They create a balance between these two and fill the breath to be traveling in the nose. Means don't force it too much and then you don't feel the breath going in, that the sensation of the air passing through the nose that you don't feel anymore, but your diaphragm is increasing. Don't do that. The breathing should be slow and rhythmic, gentle. Just as long as you feel in the nose, breathe in, and then breathe out as long as you feel in the nose. So that is the real meaning. So you don't try to just do kumbhaka. Many will be translating this line as that, go for kumbhaka. But actual meaning is just to say prana apana samam kritva. This should be balanced, prana and apana, breathing in, breathing out, and it should be felt only within the nose. As that long you do your breathing in and breathing out. So it speaks of slow, gentle, rhythmic breathing. So let that go on. Your eyes are fixed. It's not moving around, half closed, and you have already stopped your interaction with the external world. And that's how, when you do that, what happens? Naturally, you become yata indriya mano buddhi. Yati means restraining. Your mind and your buddhi, your mind and intellect and the senses, they all become settled down, calmed down. You have controlled them naturally by this process. So that's mentioned in the next line. Yatendriya mano buddhir munir moksha parayana. Muni. Now next step comes. You have controlled your mind. But that's not all. It should be focused on something. Moksha parayana. The tremendous aspiration should be there that in this very birth, that as we find in Buddha's life, sitting for meditation with that strong conviction, ihasane shushyutu me shariram tvag mangsha rudhira pralayan chajati. Let the body disintegrate, but as long as let my body dry off, but as long as I don't get that illumination, I am not going to get up from my seat. Buddha sat in meditation with that resolution, and that took him to the realization. And this few lines, when in Baranagar Mutt, after the passing away of Ramakrishna, when all these direct disciples, the young ones, the aspiring souls, they were leading a very intense life, is to meditate for hours. And these were the lines. in very highlight, they have highlighted, they've brought in a very big letters, they have kept it as a display in their meditation hall, that this should be our resolution. So that's what is the meaning of the word moksha parayana. And what's the meaning of the word muni? Muni means mananshila, one who is contemplating. You have just stopped your mind, and you don't keep your mind vacant. Keep it with the idea that you are the Atman, you are the Brahman, or if you are a devotee of God, with the idea that you are in eternal association with the divine. Try to feel the presence of the divine in your life. Or if you are quite happy with the idea that I am the self separated from the body-mind complex, the eternal witness, in no way I am attached to it, well, that is also an idea. So Muni means Mananshila. With this type of idea, with the help of a mantra, you go on contemplating. Munir, and with the aspiration, with that idea, it is not just a mechanical meditation, that every day I have to meditate. I have taken it as a practice for my life, and after some time I forget the why I am doing it. It becomes mechanical. No, every time when you sit for meditation, first have that firm resolution that here in this life I am going to attain the highest spiritual illumination. With that resolution, with that aspiration, with that yearning, that speaks of moksha parayana. When you sit for meditation, then at last vigat ichha bhaya krodha. This all will help you to attenuate three things: ichha, bhaya, krodha. What are these three things? So the moment we get identified with the ego, the self gets reflected in the body-mind complex. This reflection generates the ego. From the ego, what happens? That I forget that I can never be annihilated. I am the eternal self. That idea that I am eternal, that is still echoing through my body-mind complex, and I try to realize it through the body-mind complex. From that, three types of emotions, feelings arise. What's that? As every creature, from small bacteria to human being, if anything is pleasurable, if anything is going to sustain it, it is drawn towards it, isn't it? That all the things which are pleasurable means that which is going to sustain me. That speaks of ichha. That speaks of the desire, raga. Ichha speaks of raga. I'm get drawn towards it. So it speaks of what? The more my ego is stratified, the more my desires are strong. And anything which is going to disintegrate me, what will happen? I will be running away from it. Bhaya. Ichha, bhaya, krodha, bhaya. Oh, this will disintegrate me. If something doesn't allow me to get the things which is favorable for my existence, I will be at rage. I will be totally angry with that person. Krodha. So these are the three basic instincts which all the creature have, from the human being, from the small microbe to the human being. As long as that ignorance is there, and from that ignorance that ego has arose. That's why in Yoga Sutra they say there are 5 kleshas: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Avidya is the ignorance. From ignorance, ego arises. From ego, the other 3: raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So through meditation, so this muni and is very important. Mananshila. You have calmed down your mind. But if you are not trying to contemplate on the fact that you are not this limited body-mind complex, you are the Atman. You are the pure self, which is in eternal present, which is neither past, nor present, nor future. It is as it is. There is no transformation. And no phase of time can interrupt its existence. It's Trikala Vadhita Satya. So unless you are constantly meditating on that, that speaks of Mananshilata. You can never get rid of the idea that you are this limited body-mind complex. We are constantly holding to this idea. From there, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha arises. Raga is attachment, dvesha is hatred, abhinivesha is fear of death, clinging to life too much. So these all starts falling off. You get more and more attuned to your real self. So that's the meaning of the word Vigata, Ichha, Bhaya, Krodha. Ichha speaks of the raga. That starts, that Vigata means that's gone, that has become past. Vigata, past. You are no more, just you're aware of it. It is something has become, Vigata means which is past tense. It is no more with you. Vigata, Ichha, Bhaya. Fear. Extreme clinging to life creates the fear of death. All the Bhaya at last you will find results from fear of death. That is Abhisneha. Too much clinging to life. From where it comes, even a small, you will find a small duckling. That they say the small duckling and this, the hen, the chicks and the ducklings. How to differentiate? They almost look same. When they're small, they almost look same. You just ask them to go towards water. You will find the chicks are running away from water. The ducklings are easily going. So no one has taught them that water is dangerous for them. It is instinctual. They say this fear of death is a proof of our past lives. We have gone through innumerable lives. And with this ego, we were clinging to that life. And at last, the death was there. And we went through that horrendous experience of the death we never wanted. It was there. And it has entered into our psyche deeply. And that results in abhisneha. Even at the moment of birth, when we have no experience, we find somehow even a small child will be reacting to a situation where death is inevitable. From where it has come, it must be some past experience. We have went through it so many times. So abhisneha, that bhaya, at last results from that falls off. One of our Swami, very interesting, is a very senior Swami. He has passed away now. He was a very good monk. He was in charge of a center and was doing a lot of work. Of course, it was trying to have a balance between work and his contemplation. Now, such a Swami, one day he was passing through one of the riverbeds, dried riverbeds, in a car. In India, in summer the riverbeds get dried. So many riverbeds get dry. And then in monsoons, again, suddenly that water will come. And now one day when he was passing through one of those riverbeds, it's not a proper road. And he could see, most probably some dam water was released. Water like pillar is coming. And automatically the Swami was very much terrified. He asked the driver, speed up. Otherwise we will be washed away. And they were really lucky. Just crossed and they saw that the huge column of water just went through. It was like a flash flood. It came. And the moment he crossed, suddenly the thought came that I was doing japa. When I was traveling, as I have nothing to do, and seeing this column of water, everything stopped. I forgot. And then he took it into that mind that that the fear of death is such that even for a wise person, even for a contemplative person, it's instinctual. You cannot stop it. It just comes. And that made him think so much. He stopped all his work. He started leading a very contemplative life. And he was quite highly revered. He's a respected Swami. But what's the idea we are saying here is the instinctual idea of the fear of death. It is there. It is very difficult to get rid of it. But for a realized soul, that falls off. As Swami Vivekananda that relates that wonderful experience, a monk always used to chant Soham, Soham. I am the self, I am the self. Always used to chant. And he used to reside in a forest. He used to sit under the shade of a tree, contemplating, meditating on that idea, I am the self. And one day a lion came, pounced upon him, and carried him deep into the forest, at last to kill him. And the villagers on the other side of the river, the forest was, there was a river, on the other side of the river there was a village. The villagers from the village could hear till the last breath. The chanting has not stopped. He's chanting Soham, Soham, Soham. So as even a man of realization, nothing can disturb him. He is firm in his conviction that I am the self. this body complex, body-mind complex will fall off. Anything which is integrated is bound to disintegrate. The thing which is not integrated, the self, that's the real individuality. You'll find in English, even in all the languages, we use some word without knowing its meaning. When I say individuality, I think, oh, this is individual. This is not individual. This is everything which can be disintegrated, divided. The word individual speaks individuality. Individuality is what you say at the beginning. It is that there's a prefix in plus individuality. What in means for is negation, that which cannot be divided. What cannot be divided? Only the self. The self is beyond all part components, all sorts of integration. It is as it is. Everything else is an integration. Anything which is integrated by various components has to disintegrate. So these body may fall off, but the real individuality, which is my Atman, the soul, that remains. That's why in the West, when Swami Vivekananda, even in the last gospel class, we were saying that he was speaking of our real self as the Atman, as the Brahman, in which our so-called limited individuality merges. Someone from the audience who was for the first time hearing this Vedanta, they are from the Western background, they were not acquainted with this idea. So one lady got terrified that my individuality gets merged in the absolute. So she stood up and shouted, "What happens to my individuality?" And Swamiji immediately stopped his lecture and with a smile replied, "My lady, you are not individual yet. You become individual when you are one with the absolute." So that's the idea, that when I am one with the absolute, then what happens? Ichha, bhaya, krodha. Because all these things arise from this idea of this limited personality, and behind which the ego is there. So the ego has started falling off by my identification with the self. And then what happens? Nothing can disturb you. Yah sada mukta evasa. He is always in that, enjoying the state of liberation, even while living. This is the beauty of the Vedanta, of Gita. They don't say that you have to die to enjoy the bliss of liberation. Even in this life, while living, by changing your paradigm, by changing the way you look at life, by totally overhauling your personality with the help of your paradigm. First you have a paradigm, and that paradigm is not something which you believe. You live that. You live what you believe. Your life becomes transformed. You overhaul. And then you become a totally transformed person. Outwardly you may look same, but inwardly the total change has happened. And now nothing can affect you. You will be just looking like an ordinary human being, but your total perspective has changed. So nothing can affect you. You are above all the dualities of life. And that's the state of liberation. Yeah, sada mukta is always liberated. Mukta evasa. So in these two verses, they are speaking of the entire gamut of our spiritual journey. So we will now, before going to the last verse, the last verse speaks of what's that state, that state which has been spoken of, the 29th, that you speak of that self. Now, as per Advaita Vedanta, that's the state of that homogeneity, non-dual consciousness beyond all activities. Does Bhagavad Gita speak of the ultimate reality as that non-dual Atman or Brahman? So here, that you will find if you study Bhagavad Gita between the lines, whenever they're speaking of that ultimate reality, it is not that non-dual consciousness. In the 15th chapter, the entire chapter is dealt with the nature of the divinity, and that is called Purushottama Yoga. Purushottama. Purusha Uttama. What it speaks of? That First, let us try to understand the idea of the absolute as has been spoken in Bhagavad Gita before we enter into the 29th verse. That as here we are saying that I am the self totally separate from the body-mind complex. Is that self speaks of that actionless inert state? Or is activity possible even when I am established in that self? To understand that, the idea of the absolute reality, what is that? In its totality, not as in just as a partial aspect. In its totality, we have to understand what's the idea which the Bhagavad Gita speaks of that absolute reality. We have to understand. So first, let us try to understand from the entire Bhagavad Gita, various, it is spread out through the entire Bhagavad Gita, various slokas are there which speaks of that absolute reality, the nature of the absolute reality. So before going to the 29th verse, let us try to understand the nature of the absolute reality as has been described in Bhagavad Gita, the Purushottama. So what is being spoken in the 18th chapter, in the 15th chapter, the 18th sloka, what it is saying? Yasmat ksharam atitoham. Aksharat api chottama. Atosmi loke vedecha prathita purushottama. That I am transcending, I am above the kshara, everything which disintegrates. But not only that, I am the one, the real me is one who transcends the akshara. Kshara means that which disintegrates, the akshara that doesn't disintegrate, that's the consciousness, the self. Here something interesting is saying, I am not that consciousness, the real me is something which transcends even that conscious state also. So, yasmat ksharam atitoham aksharat api chottama atosmi loke vedecha prathita purushottama. So in the Vedas, I am celebrated as, known as, in the Smritis and everywhere, as that Purusha Uttama, that supreme divine personality. What it actually speaks of. To understand it, let us resort to one example given by Sri Ramakrishna. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we find that. What he's saying, when a snake is just lying motionless, coiled up, motionless, then also it is the snake. And when it is moving around, wriggling around, then also it is the snake. The same snake which lies coiled, motionless, is the snake. When it is moving around, is the snake. It is the two aspects of the same reality. Sometimes it is inert, sometimes it is moving. So if I say this inert state is the ultimate state, Sri Rama, in the words of Ramakrishna, ojone kam podbe, means if you are, what you say that, what's the ojone kam podbe? He's giving the example of a fruit. Now, when we are eating the fruit, of course we think the pulp is the essence. So we extract out the pulp, the external, the spill we peel off, the skin we peel off, the seeds we remove. So now Ramakrishna is saying, if you have to take the fruit in totality and you just take the pulp, then in wet it will be less, because the seed, the skin, everything forms a part of it. So the reality as a whole is what? The absolute. Of course the absolute we are not denying, but it is also a fact. I don't know how it has happened. That's what we call ignorance. But that absolute is appearing as the world. As world it is false, but as God it is true. It is the same reality. It is not something that it is like imagination. That's why in Sanskrit these are the words which is very important. We have to understand it correctly. Otherwise we will just have a total wrong conception. That when we say this world is a projection, we think it is imaginary. It is not imaginary. What is imaginary? Now if I just close my eyes and think a huge palace in the sky, in imagination it is possible. I can imagine. But in reality, is it possible? No, it is not possible. So this is called alika. Alika means a thought which has no corresponding reality. And another thing is that I am passing through a street in the dusk, in the dark, it's in the twilight hours. there is a rope lying there. I see it as a snake. So here also what is happening? I am not seeing the correct. Here also I was not seeing any reality. Here also I am not seeing the reality. But that what I am seeing is actually projected on something which is real. The rope is real. On that I am imagining something. If I think of a lotus in the sky, it has no corresponding reality. It is not being projected on something. There is no reality in it at all. But here the reality is there. As rope, it is real, which is appearing as snake. So this is asatya. This alika and asatya is different. So when I say this world is imaginary, it doesn't mean nothing is there. It is the self which is appearing as the world. As the Isha Upanishad starts with this idea. Isha vasyam idam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. That's why in India, when any foreigner come to India, they feel what type of religion it is. They worship tree, they worship stone, they worship the river. Everything is worshipped. The people will get down to the Ganges with full, that bathing is also something, a sacred act. That's what, when the disciples of Swami Vivekananda came along with Swamiji for the first time, they were a bit astonished that just a simple act of shower, that also can be religious. That is also religious. Going down to the river, they worship the mountain, they worship the river, because it is the Lord. The basic idea is that it is the Lord which is appearing as the universe. So in my interaction, if I take it as the world, that is out of ignorance. But if I take it is the divine, my interaction need not stop. The interaction can go on. But all the interactions becomes a worship. At the beginning, what happens? Work and worship. I think when I sit for meditation, I am contemplating on the divine, I am performing certain rituals, that is worship. And when that is over, remaining is my work. But with your spiritual evolution, what happens? Work becomes worship. Whatever I am doing, all the actions are actually interaction with the divine. This world, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, I worship that God whom the ignorant calls man. That I see him as a man, as a woman. I worship that God whom the ignorant calls man. But I see the God behind everyone. This you will find this is the idea in the entire Bhagavad Gita. What Guru Maharaj is saying, what Swamiji is saying, that when someone came to Swamiji and told that my mind is very restless. Every day morning I close all the doors and windows and sit in my room for meditation, but still I find I cannot control my mind. It is agitating me. It is disturbing me. Swamiji told us that he was a young boy. Oh, young boy, if you really want to listen to my words, I would advise you first to open all the windows. Open, don't close it. Look around. It is the Lord who is finding expression as this entire world. Go out. Help the God in the poor. Help the God in the needy. In the one who needs some education. Go out. Serve them. The more you think of yourself, the more you lose yourself. The more you think of others, the more you will find yourself in the entire creation. So these are the wonderful ideas which you can take it as a commentary of the Bhagavad Gita. So you will find the Purushottam idea is that the Lord who is the Absolute is also this world. Why he has become this world, I don't know. That is ignorance. But I cannot deny the fact that this world is an expression of the divine. It is not something apart from the divine. That it is something minus the divinity. It is all that is the God is being projected as the universe. So both, if you take that reality in totality, you have to accept this also. So just to sit in meditation and be in deep samadhi, totally forgetting your interaction with the world, is just half the truth. The full truth is, yes, in that I do enjoy the absolute stillness. But when I come out from that, abhyudaya, that speaks of abhyudaya. Abhyudaya means when you are coming out of the meditation. You are seeing the same world, but the world has now transformed. Everywhere you find the expression of the divinity. As In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a wonderful line that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Jatra Jatra Netra Pare, Tatra Tatra Krishna Sphure. That wherever my eye falls, I see Krishna popping up from there. Sri Ramakrishna says very same thing, that when you are illumined, how your vision changes. He's saying that just the way after a heavy shower, you go and just walk on in the grassy field, on grass field, on a lawn, you find that the entire lawn is drenched with water. The water it's soaked with water. It's not visible, but when you're walking, you find the entire ground is soaked with water. Sri Ramakrishna is saying, I feel the entire world is in the same way soaked with consciousness. Consciousness is everywhere. So these are the words of the realized soul. They feel it. It's not something just a make-believe. They see the world. When Ramakrishna touched Naren, when Naren one day was joking, Sri Ramakrishna was saying that everything is consciousness, and Naren was sitting outside with Hajra. There was a discussion going on, and Naren started joking. So he saw some pot there. He's saying this Ghoti Brahma, Bhati Brahma. This pot, utensils, everything is Brahma, and they were just having fun. Ramakrishna overheard what's going on there. He came out of his room and asked Hajra, what are you discussing? He's saying, oh, Naren is just joking that you told everything is Brahman. So he's saying, oh, this pot is also Brahman, this tumbler is also Brahman, and that's how he is making fun. Ramakrishna went and simply touched Naren. And for 3 days, his vision has changed. He's at home, he couldn't take food. He felt it is just soaked with consciousness, the same thing as he. He is still, if you go to Calcutta, there's a Hedua, and there's the swimming pool is there. It was there in the time of Swamiji, very old swimming pool. And it has some railings. He saw the railing to be conscious. He went and just started striking his head on the railing to feel whether it is something inert or it is really consciousness. So the tram was coming. He was not moving out. He thought everything is consciousness. He was behaving like a mad person. For 3 days it happened. Ramakrishna made Naren believe by totally changing his perspective. Not only once, that how Swami Vivekananda became such a devout, means he told, if anyone have understood Ramakrishna, it's me. Why? Because I have constantly tried to challenge him. And in the process, the way I have known Ramakrishna, I know every inch of the way. I know him. Because always I was challenging him. And that helped me to go to the realization. He was so compassionate. He took me to that realization. And that's the realization, what it speaks of, that it is the absolute which has become this reality. In the words of Ramakrishna, that negation do play a part in our spiritual journey. At the beginning, when I am so much attached to the world, I see the world as the world to be enjoyed through the senses, then a separation is required, negation is required. I am not the body, not the mind, not the self. I'm in no way. Myself is identified with the sense objects. It's just like when you are climbing up the stairs, you are negating the stairs one by one. There are 10 steps. First step I negated, then only I went to the second step. The second step I negated, then I go to the third step. So you're negating the steps one by one to reach the terrace. These Ramakrishna's words are so simple, so beautiful. When you reach the terrace, then you realize the terrace is made of the same cement, mortar, and the bricks. With the same material, the steps are also made. So when you are coming down with the realization, what I have negated, now I am affirming. I have negated it as the steps, but I am affirming it as the essential material with which the terrace and the steps made is the same. In essence, they are the same. So when you are coming back, you are coming back with that affirmation. So when there is a Abhyudaya, you come back from that state, you see the divinity everywhere. And that's the thing which God is saying, Bhagavan is saying Bhagavad Gita. Then as reality, absolute reality is concerned in totality, not as a part. I am that absolute. But again, I am the Kshara also, both. So when you realize the self, it doesn't entail in actionlessness. Action still continues. Previously, I was just a worker. Now I become the divine worker. I know the God is working through me. The love, the compassion which enables me to love my child, to be compassionate towards the other, is something as that Sahayagya Prajasrishtva, along with Yagya. He created this world. He is the compassion who is residing in my heart as that love for its expression, as a mother's life for the child, as our empathy for others being, and from which the work ensues. That work becomes the divine work. I know for certain the real me is detached, but the ultimate reality is working through this body-mind complex for the sustenance and the welfare of the world, where I have nothing to gain from it. I'm just the instrument. Nimitta matra, bhava sabhya sacha. I'm just the instrument working through it. So when I understand this idea, which has been spoken of again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, this Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vyayasya cha. In the 14th chapter, the same thing is saying, that I am the pratishtha even of the Brahman. That yo mame, this mamevam asang muda janati purushattama. The one who knows it for certain that I am the Purushottama. Sa sarvavit bhajati. He worships me in totality, not in segregation, by running away from life. This running away from life is never been prescribed in the Bhagavad Gita. That you have to be involved in life, but with a different perspective. So whenever Bhagavan is speaking of meditation and going to the depth of your meditation, immediately after that you will find they speak of that ultimate reality which you realize through that meditation has been highlighted in Bhagavad Gita, which takes the reality in totality. So that we don't resort to the state of actionlessness. Let the action still continue, but with a total different perspective, where we have become the instrument in the hand of divine, and where we know that the work is going on through me. As yagya it is going on, but I am the detached self behind it. And that's the state of liberation which has been spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, the state of liberation is in no way detached from action. So with this idea, now let us go to the 29th verse to understand that in 27th and 28th they spoke of that you know the self, you realize the self. What's the nature of the self? That's been spoken of in the 29th. What is spoken of? Bhoktarang yagya tapasang. Bhoktarang. I am the bhokta, I am the enjoyer of all the yagya. That through yagya, that again is not just fire worship. All yagya, all the actions out of love, out of empathy, which is going on in this world, which speaks of interaction. So all the sacrifices is yagya. Sacrifice doesn't mean the fire sacrifice. Sacrifice means the mother's sacrifice for the child. Anyone's, through love, whatever we are doing, speaks of sacrifice. So all sorts of sacrifices, which finds expression as empathy, all sorts of asceticism, tapasa, by which we are trying to transcend from our lower self to the higher self. The lower self, which is involved in the sensate existence, to that higher self, where one sees the divinity in each and every being and tries to interact with the world as if interacting with the divine. So this is the transcendence from the lower self to the higher self. So when you transcend from this lower self to the higher self, this process, who is enjoying? It's not me. It's not that today I have went for meditation for 1 hour and immediately the ego develops. Oh, see, others are all lower creatures. I am evolved. No. It is the Lord who is finding expression through me, either as yagya or as tapas. So he is the bhokta, he is the enjoyer. So that's why in Shankaracharya in Bhagavad Gita's commentary, in one place when he is describing that what is detachment, he is saying, Ishwaropi tushyatu iti sangam tyaktva. That even God be pleased. That sangha I have tyaktva. I have just relinquished. Why? Because When I say God is pleased, what I think? Again, that self, limited self gets nourished. Oh, God will be pleased. In return, He will be giving me something. The question of giving back is not there. I'm just an instrument. With the pen, when you write pages for together, do you think as a reward to give something to the pen? It is just an instrument in your hand. So similarly, I'm just a pen in the hand of the divine. Where the question of God's giving me reward comes, I'm just happy to be the instrument in His hand, to be just the nimitta. He has already decided what to do through me. Let the life go on as an instrument in His hand. So that's the idea when he's speaking bhaktarang yagya tapasam. So all the activities in the world which is going on as a yagya, through empathy, through tapas, through our endeavor for self-improvement, He is the bhukta. He is the enjoyer behind it. Sarva loka maheshwaram. He as the Lord of the entire universe. Sarva loka maheshwaram. Suridam sarva bhutanam. And again, He is not only the Lord who is transcendent, He is immanent. Suridam. He is in the heart of everyone. He has, what you say, that the great Lord of the world and the well-wisher of all beings. So it is again and again to instruct us in the way of life, how to conduct our life. He comes down again as avatar. So it is He who is the avatar. He is who is incarnated. He is not only that absolute. Though He is nirguna, again He is guni. These words are wonderful. In Bhagavad Gita you will find that Bhagavan is saying about Himself, nirguno guni. That though I am nirguna, but again I am guni. It is all the attributes are of mine. He comes down as avatar to help out the mankind from the delusion in which they have fallen. So they are surida, sarva bhutana, gyatva mang, shanta. Who knows me thus, he only attains that real peace, shanti vicchati. Otherwise, I may go into deep meditation and then the external world comes and disturbs me. I feel, oh, my meditation is gone, it's disturbed. I was enjoying the bliss of that contemplation. The external world with all its distractions, vagaries, idiosyncrasies is there to disturb me. Because I have taken the half of the truth. The real is the world with all its idiosyncrasies is actually the God's Leela. As Swamiji says, that all these so-called idiosyncrasies are the plan of the divine. Just when I go to the gym, I work against the weight to gain my strength. It's not there to just relax or to enjoy the luxuries of life. That's why Swamiji is saying, this world is not a pleasure garden. It is a gymnasium where we have come to make ourselves strong. So from that perspective, when I see that with all the so-called insufficiencies I see there, from the ego perspective, they are all insufficiency. From the spiritual perspective, they are all the weight against which I have to work through to evolve in my adventure of the spiritual journey. I work through them to transcend them. Just I work against the weight, I transcend the weight. Today I cannot lift it, tomorrow I can lift it. Similarly, there's all this, our trials and tribulations, I take it as a weight against which I have to work to really transcend spiritually. So nothing is unwanted. That for my meditation everything is disturbance. No. This is also okay. I get some time for meditation. I do meditation, but when I come out, then I am totally transformed. The revelation is that God has become the entire creation. I am interacting with the divine in whatever form it may be. And then you become the divine worker, and then you are sada mukta. That word has been used. Sada mukta. Always free. Your freedom is not in any way disturbed by the world, even for a single moment. You always remain in that state of liberation, whether in contemplation or whether you are working. So that's why this last sloka is very important. Bhagavad Gita will again and again resort to this idea of the absolute reality, so that we may never think that the ultimate spiritual goal is just to be inactive in the deep samadhi. When I again come back from that state, whatever I am doing is again spiritual. Only my vision has to change. That what? that what I see is not just the world of name and form. It is the divine which is finding expression as the world. So when you see the divinity in totality, then you become Sada Mukta, ever liberated. So that's the idea with which this chapter ends. So this idea, when we keep in our mind, then the next chapter, the meditation becomes what? It is to intensify our conviction that when I am meditating, that I am thinking that I am beyond this body-mind complex. This idea should remain even when I am working, interacting with the world. That I may be in the midst of this mad, busy world, but inwardly I will be always calm, poised, and indrawn, yukta, always in attune with the self. So with that idea, with this idea, we will proceed to the next chapter, the 6th chapter, which we will start in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.